Welcome back to the Shifting Focus. We have the original Coconut Girl. Right. We have Miss Michaela Partin in the hot seat with Wild here in the Emerald Coast. Tell us about you. Tell us about your story. Let's get into it.
Yeah, for those who don't know what Wild Destin is, how did we find you?
I don't know how you guys, maybe Instagram, maybe you saw me out on the water. I run a business called Wild Destin, and we are the original Coconut Girls. I started 6 years ago, and we sell coconuts, pineapples, all types of fresh fruit from our little outrigger boats at Crab Island here in Destin.
That's amazing. And that's exactly how we found you.
Yeah. Did you guys see us out there?
Yeah, exactly. So we're like, this is so cool. There's a bunch of girls selling coconuts and fresh fruit.
No, please tell me more. How'd you find her?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard not to see a bunch of girls in bikinis right around giving it out that. But either way.
Some tan, beach babes.
Usually what we
coconuts.
we get the husband with the credit card that's like, my wife sent me over here. I need 3 of those, 4 of those, you know. Yeah. So I get it. That's usually what we get.
Yeah.
Steph's the opposite, where she's like, oh my gosh, get some from them. Let's support their local business.
Yeah, and we love that. And everybody's been very supportive. That was like one of the first things I wanted to shout out was like our local community came around me from the very beginning. They've been incredible and very supportive.
And for people who don't know what Crab Island is here in Destin, Florida, how would you explain it or describe it?
It is a sandbar, so not an island, obviously, in the middle of the Choctawhatchee Bay here in Destin. And I always say that it's just a meeting of worlds of all types of people. So you just are converging on boats in the middle of the water, and you have people of all walks of life with all types of agendas. You have the party girls, you have the bachelorettes, the families, you have, you know, all types of people just looking to have a good time. And that's what's so great about our area is that we have such beautiful scenery here and opportunities for people to just have a great time on the water.
Yeah. If you haven't gone to Crab Island, you got to check it out.
Yeah, it's great. People like to bag on it. I grew up going to Crab Island. Like most kids, my parents were actually married right in front of Crab Island. So
in the water?
Yeah, they were married on sailboats right in front of the Coast Guard station there. So it's a huge part of my heritage and my family. But Crab Island, whether you hate it, whether you love it, it's amazing. It's a good time for all types of people. And I personally still love going and spending time there. I love to people watch there. I love to sit in my float all day and, you know, hang out with my butt in the water. And that's my favorite thing. So I still love it.
It's like a Vegas pool party, but in the wild.
But better too.
Better.
Like you can position yourself based on what type of experience you're trying to have. You know, if you want to have a more relaxing family experience, hang on the fringe of, you know, the outside of the sandbar. And if you want to get amongst it and find, you know, beer pong opponents and meet a bunch of people and find dogs with, you know, sunglasses on, swimming around, like you can just find so much. Then you go to the interior and you get amongst all the excitement. But I think it's a great spot. And obviously I'm incredibly grateful for it. It's created this space for me to bring something to life that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do.
Let's go backwards a little.
Yeah.
How did that idea even come into fruition? Who were you before to lead you to that?
Yeah, good question.
I know, like this, I've lived so many lives, so this could get very long-winded. So like, you can give me the wrap it up if it gets a little long. But yeah, like I said, I'm from here. I was actually born on the East Coast. In Cocoa Beach, Florida. So I was born over there, moved over here when I was 14, but my parents met here. And so their romance started here. Both parents are from here. So they moved me back freshman year of high school. They moved all our family back to the Emerald Coast. And that was really difficult. If you can imagine, freshman year, you know, you've lived your whole life somewhere else. They pull you to this area.
I don't wanna.
Yeah, and I think you naturally resent that a little bit, and maybe it's kind of hard to see the positives of the place. So when we moved here, my parents were like, "Oh, this is so beautiful." My parents met selling sunscreen on the beach. So they're like, "This is so beautiful. This is our heritage. This is where we met." And for me, I was 15 and I was like, this sucks, you know? But luckily at the time I had just started surfing. And so where my parents moved us in Destin was way closer to the beach than we had ever lived as a family. And so a time where I felt really isolated, I didn't have a lot of friends at school. It was like a perfect storm because it just pushed me into the ocean. So the ocean kind of became my, you know, best friend in that time of my life. So I guess that would be the positive was I got super into surfing right into freshman year. And a lot of people honestly made fun of me. This would have been 2004, 2005. Wait. Like, did I want to age myself that much? Yeah, so this would have been 05. It was a very different time here. And it was before, I would say, that in this area, like, surfing was not like the cool thing. Like, people were kind of like, oh, whatever, you're a surfer, you know, like, you were kind of looked down upon. So I just really poured myself into it and ended up traveling quite early on into kind of my surfing. So let's see, I'll have to go back. So my junior year of high school, I first went to Indonesia. And so,
as a junior by yourself?
Yeah. So
For a
I
surf
guess I
trip?
skipped a few parts. So my sophomore year of high school, I took all my classes online, which was pretty prolific.
You're such a surfer.
Yeah, I'm such a surfer. This is so surfer. And for like somebody in 2024, that sounds normal.
Right.
But this was the first year that high school courses were offered online in the state of Florida. And I had to have one of those USB things that plugged into your laptop and gave you like Wi-Fi signal so I could get on my classes. Yeah, like you had to make your own physical hotspot. Like... Kids don't understand this now. But I say that because I took my classes online because I had an aunt, my dad's sister, and she's an artist, an amazing artist. I come from my grandpa's an artist as well. And she had just lost her husband. And so she wanted to go on a road trip across the country for 6 months and get re-inspired for her art because she was going through kind of a devastating period of her life. And I was so young, but she looked at me and was like, you got the bug. I know you'll be a fun travel buddy. Like, let's convince mom and dad to let you come. So she did. And somehow I convinced my parents to let me take all my classes online. So I spent a semester of my sophomore year traveling across the states, and we ended up in California. And at that time, I was already a really avid surfer. So I just looked at her and was like, drop me off at the beach. And so we ended up staying in California for like 3 months because we have some family over there.
Where'd you go?
We were in Oceanside. So North County,
spot.
San Diego. Yeah, really cool spot, which I'm still, I have a big affinity for Oceanside now after this experience. But she would drop me off at the Oceanside Pier and I would get a burrito for lunch and she would pick me up at sunset. And that's what she did. And I just surfed my brains off. And so that was, like I said, a time where I didn't really have a lot of friends at home, but I was surfing. Like, you could not stop me from doing that. And I didn't really know. I knew one girl at home in this area that surfed at the time, and she's still my best friend to this day. She actually designed the logo for my business.
This one?
Yeah. Well, the wild one, but actually she designed that too.
Yeah.
This one here. So she's designed every asset we've ever made. And we met because she was the only girl on the Gulf Coast that surfed. And so that's who I was. And I was known for that in high school. Like, it was kind of, that's Michaela, she's the surfer, whatever.
So you tested out.
Yeah. And I was used to kind of, that's just how people saw me, you know? And I really dove into it too because I loved it. And I didn't necessarily recognize myself in a lot of people in high school around here, you know, because I didn't grow up here. My childhood wasn't here. So that year I actually made it to the state finals in surfing. So I flew from California to go and compete and made it to the finals, which took me to nationals, and I needed to go back to California. So I had this sophomore year that was like, I felt pretty cool. You know, I was like, I made it to the state finals. I have to go back to California to compete in surfing, you know? So I kind of already had this, like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but this is what I'm going to be doing over here, you know, and for better or for worse. And so then my junior year went back to school, and I was at the surf shop, the local surf shop, Fluid, shout out. And I was going through DVDs, and there was a free DVD that had ended up in a magazine, and it was a surf trip to Indonesia, but it was like a missionary trip. It was based on the premise that surfers go to the most isolated places in the world. They should be giving back. And so they did these trips around the world to very isolated areas, and they brought aid, medical aid. They would bring, you know, school supplies, clothing, whatever, and they would go into these communities. They would surf, and then they would give back. And so I just told my parents, I'm going to go there. Like, this is where I want to go this summer. I'm going to save money, and this is what I'm going to do. And they let me, which is crazy.
See you, Mom.
I mean, really, it's
looking back, it's crazy. And you have to really think contextually too. This again is pre-Facebook. This is MySpace, you know? So, but I think because my parents, like, which I failed to mention, my parents are pastors of Shoreline Church. They're amazing. Like, I love their community. Just so grateful for who they are, the people that are around them, the people that have supported me. But because they were pastors, I think they already understood this like philanthropic thing, the importance of that, wanting me to like save money for something, all that. So they were on board. Somehow I convinced them. They didn't know any of these people that I was going with. But I was like, I'm flying to Hawaii. Here's the DVD. This is where I'm going. Yeah. And I went and I fell in love with Indonesia. I read a book later on in my senior year that really impacted me. And in the book, it talked about your tribe, like the importance of finding your tribe. And I realized at that point in my life, I hadn't found my tribe in Fort Walton Beach High School yet. Not to say that I was that different, but I just hadn't found that. I hadn't found a sense of belonging within my community here. And I don't know what it is. Maybe in a past life I was Balinese. I don't know. But from the moment that I went to Bali, I just felt incredibly comfortable with the people, with the environment. And so I went on this trip my junior year, my summer before my senior year. And my whole senior year, I was just completely distracted by getting back to Indonesia. Like, I just knew, I remember I went down to my, what is it, where you have your like counselor meeting about where you're going after high school. And there was a sign at Fort Walton, that's where I graduated from. And there was a sign that had all these flags of all the colleges where my people in my class were going to go off to. So you had Ole Miss, you know, Alabama, FSU, Auburn, all these, you know, popular colleges. And I just remember looking up and just knowing that you'll never see my name on there. Like, and feeling sad in some way that I felt that I had to have that. Like, as in, why do I have to have that to feel like I've got it? Like, I know where I'm going. Because to me, I was like, I know where I'm headed. I'm going to Indonesia. I'm getting out of here. And I think I remember looking back and going like, this isn't who I'm going to be. And that's okay. And I think I'm grateful that at that time I had the strength to know that and to pursue what I was passionate about, you know?
Love that.
Yeah. So, so I was just obviously so distracted. I ended up getting the superlative for my senior class, worst case of senioritis, because I was never there. I literally had to beg my teachers to pass me because I just was like, I'm going to Indonesia. I'm out of here. And in the yearbook under the worst case of senioritis, they couldn't even get me to show up for the flippin' photo shoot. So they just put a picture of me surfing there, you know?
Hey,
and
even better.
Looking back, this sounds so this sounds so cool and funny and like whatever. But at the time, like, I felt like such an outcast, you know, I just felt so different. And so the day after I graduated, I flew off to Hawaii, which is where this organization had a base, and they had a leadership program there. So I engaged in their leadership program. I think it was like a 4-month program. And then I kind of did, well, do I want to tell my parents this? I kind of did the leadership program as like the schmoozing of like, hey, I'll go and get this, I'll be in this program and it'll be disciplined. And then I'm going to get all my tools at this program to go and live the rest of my life in Indonesia. That's where I'm going to go after that. You know, nice. If for some reason that made sense. Yeah. So I went and did their program in Hawaii. And then like before I turned 19, I was living in Bali. Wow. Yeah.
What did people say to you along the way when you said this was your dream?
Oh my gosh.
What kind of things did you hear?
Sorry. I remember going to the lunch table, and this is when I had finally developed some friends that surfed, which were mostly guys. I had all brothers, so there was all these boys around all the time. So I get to the lunch table, put my stuff down. I'm like, I'm going to Indonesia. And they were like, no, you're not. Like, literally, like, and my whole life, that's been what it is. And that's what we talked about, some things that I've just been kind of mulling all this over, thinking about what has been significant to me. And one of them being obviously persistence. Like, the door doesn't open if you don't knock. And like, you just got to keep knocking on that dang door sometimes. And so I think that's how I was. And obviously whether it's for the better or worse, like I was so young and naive, which is kind of was working for me at the time. I didn't know what I had to be afraid of.
That's a good point.
You know, I was like, whatever.
Which is a good thing sometimes.
Yeah. I wish that I could sometimes look at work, business, my life plans in the future with the same type of ambition and just not letting anything kind of hold you back, you know,
without
when you're
that fear of failing, you learn from the failure instead.
Right.
And now we know the possibility, so we're a little scared, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think I'm very grateful that I got comfortable with throwing myself over the edge at a young age.
That's cool.
You know, because that was something else I wanted to talk about is like, you are going to fail. You know, like they always say, what would you do if you knew failure wasn't an option? Like, baby, I fail every day. I get into a meeting and something that I envisioned for my business, it's just not going to work out. And so it's not really necessarily if you couldn't fail, but it's learning how to be flexible and persistent. Like, okay, this didn't work out. How can I reimagine this? Or like, how can I take this out and not let it stop me from moving forward? You know? And I think that's been something, because I have failed, you know, like, and I'm very great. And those things make you great.
Oh, I love you so much. I knew you would be so great on this podcast. He was like, did you talk to Michaela? I said, oh, she's going to blow it out of the park. And he did. Like that one moment is just gold, because so many people get stuck in the fear. And it's something I really want to help people. If something scares me, then I know I have to do it.
Right. And be comfortable with being afraid.
Be comfortable with that. Yeah. Because it's the idea of it is scarier than the action of what you're actually going to be doing.
Yeah. And I think I also look at the failures that have happened along the way. They've sharpened my skill set.
Mm-hmm. Like, learn from them.
There's things that I wake up and I have to do every day, and I only know how to do them now because I failed at them 10 times. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I'm so grateful. I think we briefly talked about this, like one of the most overwhelming or the biggest failures that or it wasn't a failure, but it felt like a failure to me at the time that I've had to face in business was a couple years ago. We did a pop-up, a cafe pop-up. And that, a lot of people don't know this, but that was always my kind of end game, was I wanted to go and start the coconut boats, which I guess we're gonna have to go back to the stories too, but I wanted to go and start the coconut boats. And then I wanted Wild to have a cafe. And I thought, I'm gonna have a bakery. I'm gonna do a bakery called Wild Oats, and I'm gonna have a coffee shop, and the feminine urge to make a coffee shop and a bakery and a grocery store all in one place. But you know, that was always my end goal. And so a couple years ago, an offer kind of shaped itself up where I was gonna have this pop-up opportunity. It was actually my parents' church, but their church is very well known for being a doors open type of community. So I just thought, okay, this will work and this is affordable. And we turned this space into like my dream cafe space. Like I slaved for hours and hours and hours, painted beautiful murals on the wall. The menu was hand painted on the wall. Like everything was beautiful. And nobody came.
Oh man.
You know what I mean? Like nobody came. And I was so bummed out about that for a very long time. And I had to figure out, how is this going to shape the future of my business? Mm-hmm. Does this define, just because this was my end goal, is this going to define what I think is possible for myself? And it was a really big learning lesson, because to me, I was like, I've arrived. This is exactly what I wanted. Everything like visually was how I wanted it. And it was so hard, like from staffing, from getting people in the door. It was this crazy learning lesson. And I cried over it for sure. But like I said, I learned so much, and it really helped me learn how to be flexible. It really helped me learn how to pivot and how to not hang on to my ideas so much, and to problem solve. Like, just because one thing didn't work, okay, what did work from that? How can I shape that into something better? And there's so many things that I learned from that. And so I'm obviously I wish I could have avoided some of the heartbreak, but I wouldn't change it, you know, and I wouldn't be where I am today. And I also wouldn't be more wary about going into the restaurant industry again, the restaurant business, you know, like that's, it's tough. It's super tough.
Yeah.
And I definitely wouldn't do it again without like a power team, like an all-star team. But yeah, it just taught me so much, and it shaped who I am today for sure.
What did you really take away from that? Like, what were the big positives and negatives that you remember from that experience?
I think positive. I think I learned that I do have vision.
Like you can do it.
To trust my vision, and to like, I think that's been something obviously like we can all work on in our daily lives in general, but that's been something that I've really been trying to hammer to myself after that experience is like, trust your vision. Like, you know who your girl is, you know who your customer is, you know who you're reaching, and you have the power to do it. So trust it, which is so funny that that came from a failure experience. I think on the opposite end, what I learned from the negative side is like, yeah, like you can put everything in your whole heart and think that you know everything about everything, but you don't. And I guess that's the lesson there, is that like sometimes things just don't work out. And I think it's also choosing to not be defined by, did I win or did I fail? Because those things are going to change. Some days you're going to win, and some days just suck. Like being a business owner, like I had a week last week that just sucked. And that's just how it is. And some days, some weeks you're going to finish and you're going to be on top of the world. So you can't ride that. You have to like be firm and know who you are when you're on the top and who you are when you're on the bottom. And just keep, like with consistency, persistence, just keep chugging away, keep knocking at the door, you know? And that was huge for me because I'm not a failure, but that thing kind of failed, you know? So
how do you keep the identity in a place like, you know, you were a surfer amongst people who just weren't surfers? How do you stay true to yourself? Like, I know you get up, you knock on the door, but if somebody's stuck, how do you help? What would you suggest for them to get unstuck while also still remaining true to who they are?
Yeah, I think I'm a creative at heart. So my answer is always going to be like, take a vacation, like, you know, or do things that feed into your soul, your sense of vision. So for me, for example, I go to Indonesia every off season. Like that's just a non-negotiable. I took my whole team last year. Like they funded their way, but they came with me and they saw what inspired this business. And I speak Indonesian fluently. Like, I know we'll go back there, but these people, my Balinese friends and family and expat family that I've known now since I was 19 years old, they are so important and integral to my story. And I got to take my team there. So I think what that is creating space within your schedule as a business owner or as somebody that's trying to create and build towards something to be inspired. If you're feeling stuck, step back, take a big picture for a moment and try to obviously focus on core values. And I think that's what I really do, is focus on what's important to me, what inspires me. And I think that's where vision comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Step back. I like that. Sometimes you're too close. You're in it.
Yeah, it's so hard. And I think also too, obviously in an American context as well, where we like to grind it out. So like, how hard are you working is your badge of honor.
Yep.
But I think I don't do my best work when I'm exhausted, and I'm not my best leader when I'm exhausted, and I don't have any vision, creative vision, or what's the word? I'm thinking, sorry. I struggle to create vision or direction for my business when I'm working out of a place of exhaustion or defeat. So find space, and I think, and spend money on that if you can. Like value that, make that a high value to your business. I think that's important.
Do you stay up late or are you an early riser?
I'm an early riser, 100%.
Oh God, I'm surrounded by you guys.
I'm an early riser and I'm a yoga girly now. Shout out. Yeah.
Sunrise yoga.
I'm really getting like, I'm going full into it. Yeah. I'm into my hot yoga and
Take me, I'll go.
I also do that. I'm in yoga just thinking about wild and it helps me. Everything. It helps me to
it's a creative space.
Yeah. To create space for myself. I think it's important.
Let's go back into your story.
Yeah.
Because I want to hear more about it. So you moved to Indonesia when you were 19.
19.
And then pick us back up from there.
So I literally, the night that I arrived, it was a 2 a.m. flight. I'll never forget. I got picked up by a taxi. I had a place booked that I had found online. Like I said, this is pre-influencer, pre-Airbnb. I had no idea where I was going. And I'll never forget, at 2 a.m., the streets were packed. And I was so almost scared, I'm literally by myself in this taxi. And
Did you go with your aunt on this one? Or
no, this is by myself. Okay. This is like me moving to Indonesia, bags packed, surfboards in the car. Yeah, just on my own.
Everything?
My parents knew. They're fully supportive.
Do they know the entire truth? Or is
yeah, they know the entire truth. Okay. They knew what was going on.
Like, I might come back in a month.
Well, they knew that too. They kind of know when I have my mind made up. I'm just kind of
okay, Michaela,
yeah. They're
we'll
like,
see you when we see you. Yeah. Have fun. Be safe.
Yeah, yeah. They supported, and they were very supportive actually of this. And yeah, so we were in the taxi and all these people are on the street and I was so freaked out. And the driver just told me, he's like, yeah, they get up. Every people here, like the Ibus, the aunties, they wake up at 3 a.m. They go to the market. That's when their day starts. Just like immediately being made so aware that like your life is now so different. Like the reality of your day to day is now so different. And so I just knew that I had to look at things differently because I was in a different space. And so I got somehow a connection teaching English right off the bat. That's cool. And so I would just walk down in my village when I wasn't teaching English and I would offer to help kids on my street with their English homework. And so I could just meet their families and hang out and learn to speak Indonesian. And that's kind of how I went about it. Whoa. Yeah. And so I just spent my first like couple weeks, literally like a diplomat, like knocking on doors being like, hi, can I come hang out with your family? Creep. And people being like, yes, because Balinese people are amazing. And that's what I did. Again,
do you have any children?
Like, can you believe? Yeah. Can I come hang out with your kids? Yeah. But can you believe?
Americans are weird.
Yeah. Today.
Like, not today. And also, like, what was I thinking? And I don't know why. It just seemed so normal. Like, I just got a scooter and I started surfing every day. It just seemed like the life I was always supposed to be living. So I worked in Indonesia for 6 years after that. So around 26 years old, I left, but I first started with the English and then I ended up my first job kind of in surfing. I was in sports marketing. And so I worked for a women's surf brand that was in Indonesia, but it was basically like Hello Kitty age group. So like 8 to 14-year-old girls. And so what I did was hire their surfers, like their sponsored riders. And at the time in Indonesia, it was a very prolific time where they were starting to get surfers competing on the world stage, but you didn't see any women because they are afraid to have dark skin, to appear to have dark skin. Yeah. And so they don't want to surf. And so this was kind of a really important time in women's surfing in Indonesia itself, where I was working for this surf brand and I was sponsoring girls. So it was so cool because I had the privilege of like, if I went, one time I went surfing and there was these two sisters and they were mixed. So their mom was Balinese and their dad was American. They were down there surfing and they were so cute. They were probably like 10 and 11, like super close in age. And I went, these girls are perfect. Do you guys want to be sponsored by Surfer Girl, and oh my God, yes. And so now all of a sudden they're signing contracts with me, whatever. And 5 years ago, I went down to a beach in Australia and one of the girls was competing in one of the world events in Oz.
That's amazing.
She's Michaela.
And you're like, I found that talent.
She was yelling, Michaela, and she comes running up. I'm on the beach in Australia. I'm like, what are you doing here? She's like, I'm competing in the contest. I'm like, where's your dad? She's like, Michaela, I'm 23.
You're like, no, you're a child.
I was like, well, no. What happened? How is this possible? Yeah. So
you're like, no, I'm 23.
Yeah, like what? And now I'm auntie. So that's just how it works out. So I got to be a part of this kind of surf culture thing, especially in regards to women in Indonesia. And so grateful. So I was kind of there working in the surf industry at that time. And I ended up running the Asian surfing tour. That was my last job there. So I just was an event organizer for big events all through Southeast Asia. And then eventually, after 6 years, I was just kind of tired of the grind of being an expat, just like that daily grind of like, I'm not a citizen here. I don't know if I'm going to get pulled over. I don't have, like just kind of it, just not knowing like your next paycheck, your visa, when's that going to expire? Like whatever. I was just a little tired. And so I decided to move to Australia. And I ended up in Sydney. I was there for 3.5 years, and I ended up as a surf instructor. And I was also a fitness instructor. I went to fitness school there. And so I fell in love with Australia, obviously still incredibly connected to Indonesia at that point. And Indonesia is like the Mexico to Australian. So it's very close. It's a quick, so a lot of people are going back and forth or going on vacation there. So I was still kind of going back and forth between Australia and Indo. And then after 4 years, my visa in Australia was expiring. I was studying. And so when my studies were over, I was going to lose my visa, and I was devastated. At that point, I had been about a decade an expat. I had a place in Sydney. I had a little motorcycle. I had, all my,
so cool.
I had all my stuff. I started riding motorcycles in Australia because it gave me a really good sense of community, because the motorcycle community is awesome. So I was really, it was a time in my life where I was incredibly unsure. I also just could not fathom going back to America at that point. I left at 19. I'm now bilingual. I have been living in Southeast Asia for a very long time, which had really shaped me in my perception of the world. And all of a sudden, you're going to go back and you're going to hang out at the Red Door with everybody that you went to high school with. Like that's kind of how I thought about it. And so it seemed like it was a pretty tough time for me. But I just thought, okay, I'm going to sell all my belongings because I was pretty broke. And I'm going to go on one last big trip through Indonesia. And I'm going to find some inspiration for myself, because right now I feel so stuck. I was at this point 28. And so going on 29. And so I felt so stuck, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to go to Indonesia. This is crazy. I'm going to do a motorbike trip for 4 months. I'm going to ride a motorcycle through Indonesia, and I'm going to speak Bahasa, and I'm going to connect with something that was a very important time in my life. I'm going to wave goodbye to this era, and I'm going to go back to Destin. That's what I thought, right? So I get a motorcycle. It was a whole thing.
I ride bikes too.
Yeah, so like just that in general is like a whole thing.
Bike.
Yeah, and I ended up getting like a few sponsors. Like Bell gave me a helmet and whatever. I just like I was gonna vlog about it. I did vlog about it. Whatever. It didn't blow up, but it's fine. But
Past influencer life.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't think I was ready for it, but so I did like a good 2 months on the bike. And then I ended up getting an offer on a surfing charter off of the Mentawai Islands, which is very isolated, but the surf is amazing. And anybody that surfs knows that a charter in the Mentawais is very coveted, very expensive, and something that you kind of save your whole life for, or it's a very big trip. And so I got invited at a really good price to go on this boat. And I ended up being on this boat for a month, which was awesome. Like surfing,
you don't get seasick.
No,
Lucky.
not at all. Thank God.
Yeah.
And oh my God, you would have almost had to rip me off of this boat after a month. Like people were so excited to leave, and I was like, no.
What do you do on this boat? What is it?
So it's a surf charter. So it's like, imagine here people run fishing charters, and this is a boat that you load you and your buddies, and you're living aboard for 10, 12 days. You have, a chef that's making your food. Some of them are luxury. Some of them are pretty basic. And they have a little tender that brings you out to the waves, and you surf for 12 days. Some of the best waves you've ever seen. Like when you think about like Roxy photo shoots, Roxy era, like palm trees for days, uninhabited islands, beautiful water, so here I am in the Mentawais. Somehow I've gotten thrown a bone on this trip. I have no money. I left the motorcycle in Bali, and I've gotten lucked out on this trip, right? And I'm sitting on anchor on this boat with a bunch of Aussies, and these vendors come up. So we just finished surfing, and these local vendors come up, and they're in dugout canoes, and one has all these hand-carved trinkets, and one has a boat full of coconuts. And I'm sitting on the bow, And I was the only girl on the trip, so I was probably taking some much needed space from the boy crew.
Bow candy.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, hanging out on the bow. And I'm watching this interaction happen where they're selling to the Aussie guys. And I can hear the Aussie guys going, oh, I'm going to get this for my wife. I'm going to get this for my son, da, 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 da. And I can hear the local guys speaking Indonesian to each other about the prices and blah, blah, blah. So I'm getting both sides of the interaction. And I'm just looking around. We're in the middle of the ocean, And I'm like, this is so cool. What a cool interaction this is right here. And then I started to think, I'm like, literally, I think there's a guy that sells peanuts at Crab Island. What if I could do this? What if I could create this experience for people? You're in the middle of the ocean, you're buying this coconut, but it's not about the coconut. It's so you can go home, show your wife and go, here's the trinket. Look at this photo of me on vacation with this coconut, having this experience with these local people on this island in the middle of the water. It's about the whole collective experience that you're having. And so that really tricked something in my brain. And so I was just kind of thinking about that. And then after Indonesia, I went and met my dad in Nepal. And we were supposed to ride bikes through India because some of those mountain passes are some of the highest in the world, very coveted rides for people that ride. But we had to skip the riding because there was really bad monsoons at the time. And we went straight to Kathmandu and we did Everest Base Camp, me and my dad. And he paid for it. Amazing. Shout out, Dad. I know that's why I told you I've lived so many lives. So sorry about the editing. You're gonna have to go through.
No, this is we're not gonna edit it.
Convo. We're just rolling.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
You can re-listen to it when you write your book.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully, maybe one day we will. I'm sure I have lots more stories to add to it too. Yeah,
this is a good one to listen back on to be like, let's find the bullet points.
I know.
I said them somewhere.
I know. One day we'll see. But yeah, so my dad called me when I was in Indo and he was like, I'm going to be in Kathmandu. Their church supports some missionaries that do amazing work to rescue women out of trafficking, out of Nepal, which is a huge issue. And so he was like, we're going to go visit them and we're going to go check out the facilities. And he was like, and then I want to do Everest Base Camp. My dad was a triathlete. He's an ex-Ironman. And so he was like, I want to train for this. He's like, I can't find anybody else that will do it with me. If I pay for you to do the trek, will you fly to Nepal? I was like, yeah. Haven't hiked a day in my life. Like, I was like, yeah, for sure. Yeah, really, the truth is, I didn't even know at the time. This is really embarrassing. I didn't know that Everest was the highest peak in the world. I just did not know. I was like, yeah, cool. We're going to go climb this mountain, but like, we're going to go to base. I mean, I knew it was a big deal to do it, but I had just no idea. Like the actual scale is like the biggest. Anyways.
It's like you're surfing Mavericks. Like,
yeah.
I've done 2-footers before. It should be fun.
It's crazy. And like this, you're hiking just to base camp alone. I think it's like a 12-day trip. So I fly to Nepal. We get up, which this whole flight into, do you guys know anything about like flying into where you do the Everest?
No clue.
They say it's the sketchiest, this is so bad, the sketchiest airport in the world, or like landing strip in the world. It's actually angled down.
Oh my God.
So and it's so high up in elevation. We're on like a 12-seater plane.
Like crabbing.
I'm right behind the pilots and I can hear the thing in the cockpit going, pull up, because you're so close to these other huge mountains.
And they have to manually just...
Yeah, you have to just like override and fly the plane. It's crazy. So we flew in and I quickly realized I had never worn my hiking boots ever. My dad brought them from the States. I flew in from Indonesia. I had never worn any of my gear. And I was like, okay, wait, we're in our hiking era now. Okay. Yeah. And actually it went amazingly well. It went so well. Like my dad, I was really stressed out before it happened because obviously I was in this time in my life where I didn't know what the F I was doing with myself. So I was a little stressed, but I put that aside, went on the trip and it was amazing. But the cool thing about that trip is I think your first 8 days are spent going to base camp, if not 8 to 10 days. And you're just hiking. You're just walking one foot in front of the other. So the whole time I'm thinking like, these coconuts. I got to sell these coconuts. Like, I'm going to go home and how am I going to create this? And I start telling my dad, you know, my dad's in front of me, setting the pace. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to sell coconuts. Like, I'm going to build this boat and I'm going to sell coconuts and I'm going to call it Wild and it'll be called Wild Coconuts and blah, blah, blah. My dad's like, okay, Michaela, okay. You know, like they know me by now. I've always got an idea. And sure enough, got home, had a garage sale, tried to make a bit of money, and found my first boat. And I just think it was like the perfect storm. It happened in a time where I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was blessed with like a 3-month period where I got to really focus on the things that make me happy, the things that truly give me joy. And out of that place came this idea. And honestly, I was always like so dramatic when I first started, but I would tell my mom, like, if this doesn't work, I'm jumping off the Destin Bridge. I have nothing left. Like, because I felt I had lived so much life at this point. And I just knew that this thing had to work. It had to work. Like, and I just had this crazy confidence that it would. And this was 6 years ago. So bought the first boat, and that's a whole other story on how the boats were developed. Like nobody had ever really built a boat like what we have here for this purpose.
Yeah, because you have to hold a bunch of coconuts.
Yeah, you have to hold a bunch of coconuts and you have to cut a bunch of coconuts, and then the vibe that we were looking for and all of that. So we started on that process.
You said you found a boat. Did you find one or did you buy one? Or build? Did you find one and buy it or did you build it?
The first one I bought was a restored, it was like a restored canoe, like wood canoe that like almost like a collectible that somebody would hang up on their wall, like really beautiful wood, and it had little outriggers on it. And I have pictures of me in this boat, not at all practical. Like it had a pointed bow and a pointed stern, no place to put a motor, no point. Yeah, it was so stupid.
Were you rowing?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to be able to row.
In the ocean.
I know.
This isn't a lake. They're like a pond.
Yeah, like,
you're in the ocean. So dumb.
Yeah. And I just saw it and I was like, okay, we'll figure this out, whatever. And then find me and because my parents at the time lived on Holiday Isle. So I was blessed enough to they lived on a canal. So I'm in the backyard and we quickly were like, this is not going to work at all. This is so dumb. Like, why did I buy this? And it was actually quite expensive because it was like a collectible wooden canoe. And so I called my dad's best friend from growing up. And his name is Matt Ronk. And he is notorious in Destin, to me at least. He's my uncle. He's my favorite person now. Yeah. Like we've been in this together now for 6 years, but luckily he picked up the phone that day. He's a boat builder and I just knew him from my childhood. And I just said, Uncle Matt, I have this boat. I don't think we had seen each other in more than 15 years at this point. And I was like, I don't know if it's going to work. And I'm trying to sell coconuts. And he's coconuts, you know? And I'm like, just please, can you just come over? Just look at it. Just tell me what to do. And he comes down there and I'll never forget. And he goes, that's not going to work at all, you know? And I went, okay, well, what do we do? And he just was like, come over and we'll get some marine plywood. And he built my first boat.
Wow. I thought you were going to say he maybe cut off the back end and put an outboard. And
so we've started, he took that original canoe and then he built an outrigger for it. And I ran that boat that way and we put the outboard on the outrigger. So it was terrible to drive because it didn't have, and this is what I'm saying with failure. Yeah. Who would have known? It wasn't directly behind you. We had to mount it on the outrigger and there was no space. It was terrible. It would drive like, this thing was so small. I feel like it drove like a bus against the current at Crab Island. You're like trying to turn it and it won't turn. Sideways. You can't get into I was so scared to drive it. My first weekend at Crab Island, I walked it around. I was so scared.
You were probably scared of bumping into people in the current.
People were like, what are you doing? Like, mind you, my own brothers were like, no, you know, nobody's going to buy coconuts for $10. There's just no way. But because I had lived in Indonesia of this time where I was watching this influencer era kind of start and grow, girls love a prop. We love to have something cute and that says I'm on vacation and you're not. And I just knew I knew that's what I wanted. And I knew I just had a good feeling about it.
You could see what people couldn't see.
Yeah, I could see it. And I'll never forget though, I really was sustained at the start in that time by the locals. There obviously were locals that completely didn't understand it. And they kind of put a fire underneath me. But there was also locals that would like come up and put $100 bill in my hand and just be like, we know that you haven't paid yourself. Like, you know what I mean? They just could see me, what I was trying to create. And so I'll never forget those people. Like I still look for those people on Noriega or at Crab Island if I'm out on my boat or out on a coconut boat, you know, to thank them. It's huge. Like I think, yeah, just being intentional, even as a patron, to show that level of support to local business is so important. And it really helped me survive that slump of, okay, this boat doesn't work. Should I build another one? Like, I think having that encouragement kept me in the game to perfect what I was doing and to figure out and to problem solve the boat. So yeah, I survived with the original canoe for like a month.
I love it.
And I'll never forget one time a squall came through so bad that I almost sank and I had to start throwing stuff overboard.
There's coconuts and there's a trail of coconuts in the marina behind her.
Literally. Like it was one of these crazy storms where everybody's racing into the harbor to get away and they're not going no wake. They don't care. You've abandoned, everybody's speeding through and I'm just getting slammed with water. Right. And I'm trying to get back to my house and I start we get a cooler, we throw the ice out. We're bailing out with the cooler. At one point, water's coming in quicker over the stern than I can get it out. And I thank God, I'm like, we're going to swim. We're going to have to swim. Like, thank God I was pretty close to my canal, but I thought the boat was going to sink for sure. And I actually had a captain who still supports us to this day. Shout out Gene, Destin Pontoon Charters, that texted me and was like, did you sink in the harbor today? I saw so much fruit.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like, are you okay?
Yeah. If we don't see you, we just see a bunch of fruit.
Literally. And he did. And he was like so worried about me. And I was so grateful. And obviously I was fine, but that was like the last straw. And then we took that outrigger, the original outrigger, and added it to like a better looking canoe. And that's how we kind of created the boats that we use today.
Do you remember your first day on the water?
Of course.
Tell us about it. How did you go from that to where you are now? What's that?
Oof.
What's
gosh.
that moment?
Were you nervous driving out there?
So nervous. So nervous.
Were you scared to talk to people, or what were you telling yourself in your mind that day? Like, no one's going to buy them or everybody's going to buy them? Walk us through your mindset.
And I'm not a natural salesperson, and by nature, I'm not one of those people that will just walk up to you and feel comfortable giving you a pitch. But I was so nervous, but I just knew, like, if I don't buy it, they're not going to buy it. Like, if I'm not willing to buy into this, there's no way people are going to buy this off of me, you know, buy my fruit, see this vision. And so, although I was incredibly uncomfortable, my first day I drove out, I have photos of this actually. The boat was full of fruit. This boat was so small. Like, my coconut girls ask me now, they're like, we don't understand how you did this. Like, we don't understand how you ran this boat. But I got out to Crab Island and I just walked it around. And I think in that way, though, it was good because I wasn't driving
around. Describe that to people
physically
who don't
got
know.
out of my boat and stood around and like held onto my boat and walked it around Crab Island and just said hi to people. And I said, hi, my name's Michaela.
You had a full pitch.
I'm gonna be selling coconuts, and I would give away some stuff so I could take can I take some photos of you? And then they would buy some things. And I think it was just, I just had to get comfortable with pitching in some way. But when it's authentic, pitching doesn't feel like pitching. When it's like something that you know and you love, then you can get behind it and people will feel that. And I think people really did. And so, the journey from there is just, I did it on my own for 2 years. I did every day that I possibly could. You know, I would just work for 6 to 10 days until I would have a mental breakdown. And then I would go, okay, today's the day off, you know? And then year 3, I hired my first employees, and that blew my mind. Because who, first of all, ever thought that the girl selling coconuts would have employees? Like, I never thought, you know, I thought I'm going to save enough money to go on a surf trip. That was my goal. Like, I'm not really in debt here. At the time I started with a 2.5 horsepower motor. I don't have any debt on this thing. You know, I'm going to leave in October and I'm going to go on a surf trip. I'll be happy if I just do that. And year 3, I started to realize, like, oh, actually, this is going well. People like this. And the fruit's flying off the boat. You know, I was getting to the point where my second year, I was keeping my fruit at boathouse, and I was reloading my fruit myself. And at the time they were letting me use their walk-in, and people would just stare at me because I would come multiple times a day, just fruit literally on my head pouring into this boat. And I would go and come back so quick. I couldn't, the fruit would just fly out of the boat. And so my third year I hired 2 girls, and they're Gen Zers, and they were like, you got to get on TikTok. Yeah. And this was the first summer during COVID where we were obviously way more lax down here in Florida, and TikTok was blowing up, and I wasn't even on it like myself, but I was like, okay, I'm going to let these girls tell me what to do with this. And Memorial weekend of that year, so this is my 3rd year in business, Jamie Foxx was at Crab Island, and I had these girls on my boat. And I probably wouldn't have looked for him. I'm a little like shy. I don't want to be so showy, like one of my girls was like, we have to get him a coconut, like now, like drop what you're doing now. And so we went all around until we found him. He was not all there, I would say. Love ya. Anybody that saw him there that day could attest. He was having a good old time, as he should have. It's fine, no judgment. But he didn't even know what was going on, and I did not care. I was like, please take this coconut. And he actually ended up hanging on to the boat while I cut a pineapple. And he was with some people, a female in particular, a woman in particular, that people didn't know who she was, or there was some type of controversy around that. So this video went viral. And the Shade Room ended up posting it, like a video of them standing there getting a pineapple from me. And so I ended up with like 3 million views on TikTok. Incredible, like crazy. I could have never imagined how that would have changed the landscape of my business in such a way. But shout out to Trey and Angie too, the girls that were on my boat, who Angie's now my manager. She asked me today to get a shout out. I was like, duh. She's my right-hand man now. But, if it wasn't for them, and if I hadn't had maybe that younger influence and allowed myself to hear their point of view and perspective, I probably wouldn't have ended up on TikTok that day.
What did going viral do for your business?
Incredible. Like TikTok, like we are now the Coconut Girls from TikTok. If you come to Crab Island, that's what people are asking for. Or you're the Coconut Girl from TikTok. I watch your TikTok. Like it's just broadened our reach. And also, like we were talking about, like it helps me reach my people, like the Lisa Frank girl who is me, like the girl that maybe doesn't live on the water, but that wants that to be her lifestyle. She can watch our TikToks and connect with that. And yeah, it's just been an incredible way to tell my story and our business story, and to do something fun and to create in a fun way. It's really changed the way we do business.
How is it lucrative? And obviously it's lucrative enough, but you're selling coconuts and fruit. Is there a way to scale it to generate income? What are you doing on the side to make it more of a
just
scalable?
With the coconuts?
Yeah. Or just somebody who's looking at it from the outside saying, well, how can you make that much money on fruit? But I know your brain, and after talking to you, you're a brilliant human being. So what's next? And
There's
what are
peanuts
ways?
Too.
Yeah, we do peanuts. So
boiled peanuts.
2 years ago, we bought the original hot boiled peanut boat, which was always kind of a heritage thing for my family. My parents have always loved Robbie and his peanuts, and obviously any local that's been in the area for a long time knows he's was one of the first vendors, that little red boat. And so we snatched up the peanuts as well. So we have 3 fruit boats now. We have 2 peanut boats. It is lucrative, surprisingly so. I'm especially during doing summer. Okay. So. Yeah, I'm doing okay, but we will sell. I'm not going to give away the math, but we'll sell. We do about 40 cases, so almost 350 pineapples a day by volume. If you can imagine seeing that every day when you show up to work is a lot of fruit. So it's already scaled so much bigger than I ever anticipated. I would love to do other locations if possible, but like I said, Crab Island is really a perfect storm. It's no wake zone, aside from the politics around it, which we have talked about that briefly.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that just a little.
Yeah, but aside from those politics, it's the perfect storm of like no wake zone, very close to where we keep our boats, so we don't have to go through a bunch of highly trafficked, very busy boats flying past type of thing. Yeah. So I don't know if it can be replicated and I haven't fully decided if I want it to be, but we are starting a charter this year.
Yay!
Yeah. And I'm really excited. I bought a 1966 Boston Whaler that's completely pink. And
Barbie pink or pale pink?
Like not fluoro Barbie pink, but like pretty Barbie pink. Okay. So a little brighter than pale.
Keep an eye out for it.
It's beautiful. Please keep an eye out. It's Wild Charters. And right now we have one. Hopefully we'll be adding to the fleet. And then I think eventually there'll be a surf school too. So it's kind of my goal to be, and I need to fact check this obviously, but one of the only women run and operated surf schools in the state. Because I think, like I said, I grew up with one girl to surf with here, and I want to change that. And I also I just want to be a part of making this area a better space for women to grow into whatever it is that they are passionate about. So I think those two things are aligned with that goal. So
does it give you time to build that in the off season when it's not summer, or are y'all out there all year round?
No, so we end in October. So right now I have a little rental property in Bali now that I go and spend with my partner, and the Coconut girls come now, and we kind of spend our off season there. So this year I'm hoping that I can get all the materials and stuff going for the surf school while I'm overseas. And like I said, a lot of my time overseas inspires what I do here. So it's very like symbiotic in that way.
I love that.
Yeah.
When, was your first summer 2019?
My first summer was 2019. Yeah.
A few months later in March, did anything affect that for you guys?
What, with COVID?
Yeah.
Well, I'm very No, I can't say I'm grateful for it. That's so terrible.
No, that's okay. We had a lot of positives during the COVID. In some ways,
there were positives from it.
Of course.
You know, like luckily our area stayed very open, and really a lot of people did okay. And I think had it not, a lot of people, you know, would have not fared well under those circumstances here, because we are so reliant upon tourism. I was a wreck in March of 2019 or 2020. It would have been. I was an absolute wreck.
Do you think it was all going to shut down or something?
Well, I was so worried because they did shut down Crab Island for a time before the season fully started. They did.
That's right.
And this was when the beaches were also closed, so I couldn't surf. I was losing my mind in general. But I was also I was also dealing with the insecurity of it being year 2 for me and not knowing, is this a gimmick? Are people going to buy this in a second year? Was it fun because it was new and now it's not new anymore? So I was dealing with all those insecurities myself, and then having to deal with the COVID thing was really hard. And then it ended up just being like a crazy busy year.
The next year and a half.
Yeah, where I just found, and that's what brought on the expansion. In the 3rd year, I brought on my first new employees. And then I had no plans really to build new boats until the first time that I actually let them out on the boat and I wasn't there at all. And I realized like, oh, this is like, I went out to Crab Island myself and this is working. They're fine. I'm sitting here on this boat and they're doing this great job and they're representing me and everything's fine. And so I went, let's build some more of these. And so, I think it was because of that and because our area stayed so open that I was able to kind of grow and expand. And now we're trying to figure out what life looks like post all of that growth. You know, I think last year a lot of businesses felt things settled down a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how this season goes.
Yeah, because that influx of tourism just spiked for Florida.
Yeah, well, we had people that would normally, you know, like bachelorettes that would normally go to Mexico or they would go to Europe. They were having coconuts with us at Crab Island. Yeah. And so it kind of opened up, I guess, was really lucky in that sense. It really opened up the type of visitor that would normally come here. We had all new different people and they had all this, or we got all this exposure, you know, for the business.
Yeah, so the borders were closed. So
people had no choice.
Florida was the new hotspot.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing with beaches and the blue.
Did you face any?
Wow.
Sorry. I
These two have the plague apparently.
Did you face any challenges bringing on employees? Or what kind of things did you face?
Managing people for the first time.
Now you have people.
I think like, because I grew up in a church atmosphere, I understand people. Like, luckily, I love people. My parents love people. That's why they're in the job that they are. They love people. So that to me is like the easiest thing. I also have learned a lot about what type of leader I am, and I'm a collaborative leader. So I hate being on my own anyways, because I want to bounce ideas off of you and you and you. And I want to hear what you think. And I want to, and I want that to move us forward. And so, I've actually loved bringing on people.
That's cool.
And if you ask my manager, I call her an obscene amount of times a day. And it's not because I'm not capable on my own. It's like, I just enjoy the collaborative effort. And I enjoy being a leader. Like I want people to look at me or whatever, but I enjoy like bringing the best out of people. And I think especially for my employees who are quite young, when they show up to an environment where their boss wants to bring the best out of them, they love that. So
you're creating a culture,
a
fun environment.
We have a very good culture. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love my girls and they love being at work. So
do y'all get really suntan in the summer?
I'm so jealous of them because they're on the boats now. I don't go out that much. Oh. And I always tell them, because they're doing the hard work, they'll cut 200 fruit on their own just in a couple hours. So their hands are, exhausted. And girls that do 5 days a week, it's a lot of work on your hands. It's a lot. Like my fingers used to bleed. But I always tell them, I'm like, you guys have the fun part. I know they're out there having fun. Like I know they're working hard, but they're having fun. They're 21 years old. They're in the sun. They have a woman boss who loves them, supports them, and they're out there just having a great time. And I wish sometimes that I could be out there more.
Get out there.
I know. I probably will this year.
One day.
Get that first boat back out on the water again.
Yeah.
And walk it around.
Literally. Oh my God.
Michaela Mondays. And
just
to remind people, it is a sandbar, which is when she says she's walking around this boat.
It's a 3 foot deep like water everywhere.
Knee waist down. You're not, just to clarify that.
Yeah. I should bring back the walking around actually. Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day.
Walk around Wednesdays. I don't know. There's a whole thing. I like to play on words. You had a fun question you were going to ask her about crazy things.
Oh, not that fun. But in terms of, we've been to Crab Island. So between the people running over anchor lines and not knowing what they're doing, what's the craziest things that you've seen out there?
I think, oh gosh.
And there can be more than one. I'm sure you have a list.
It's pretty typical. You know what? I have to say, the craziest thing is, which happens quite often, is when people think that the coconuts are big mangoes. That really blows my mind.
Someone take a bite out of it?
They're just like, that's a big mango. And it's so funny because I think it has to do with a little bit of intoxication where you're like, it happens a bunch where you're like, no, this is a coconut. It's a coconut. And to me, that's like one of the craziest things, having to explain that to people. Other than that, I think it's just typical. Like my favorite thing are the dogs, and the dogs in doggy outfits, like dogs on coolers with sunglasses and life jackets and things. And their owners are pulling them around to the sandbar party. That's like one of my favorites. Other than that, it's just, typical like going abouts of Crab Island, just like twerking and families, like the whole thing.
Twerking and families.
Yeah, like they're just all right next to each other, which just creates this like crazy environment. Yeah. I wish I had like juicier stories, but
you're working. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, like honestly, we're pretty busy. So
you keep it moving when someone's running over an anchor line and getting yelled at. You're like, I'm gonna go sell over here.
Which we do almost get run over a lot. Like
anyone hit you yet? Not yet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People have hit us, not under like propulsion, but like drifted into our boats 100%. And that's another thing. And maybe this is a good way to lead into some of that Crab Island stuff, is like, it's interesting because we vendors end up doing a lot of like the safekeeping of Crab Island. Like we have a lot of eyes on these people, and we're usually the first responder to some type of emergency because there's vendors everywhere. So, it's just an interesting environment, and it's funny to see what could go down at any given day down there.
So to segue, that's the segue I was going to say. Those who don't know Crab Island itself, the sandbar is federal land technically. Yeah. Which is odd to be just out in the middle of the bay.
Yeah.
I guess, will you fill us in on the last year they kind of been trying to go after you guys? Or businesses?
So, and that's another thing too, is like, it's been super hard for us, for vendors that make their living out there, because every year it seems to go up to review for Crab Island as far as vending. So right now it's the national parks, which is the federal government, and we pay them as well as the county in order to operate out there. But last year there was some threat of some sort to give away the vending rights to Crab Island to one sole entity, which was obviously would have pushed out all these small entrepreneur local businesses in the area. And so a lot of us got together and spoke on it. We spoke at city council last year. I went with the Coconut Girls, and our mayor just ended up, Mayor Bobby ended up doing a lot of good work to get us some notice about the issue. And so they actually made it so that the national parks, as far as I know, isn't able to sell that out to a large corporation, what have you. But it does seem in some ways still like an overreach. And we are subject to very, very hefty fines. A lot of which take a chunk of your earnings, which is hard to see as a young business owner that's, been working very hard. So it's difficult. And I think the biggest or the toughest part about it is just the limbo factor of it. Every season you're kind of in limbo to hear what's going to happen and if you're going to be able to run next year. And that's really difficult to kind of be under all the time.
Not only would they take away from local businesses and small businesses, but I saw if it were to be implemented, they'd force out businesses where they can only sell at a certain spot, but it basically would be out in the middle of the channels. And it's like,
dangerous.
There'd be no safety whatsoever at that point.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And I think like just realizing obviously the value, like I was talking to my mom today, Crab Island's never going to be Crab Island that my mom knew was Crab Island. Like Crab Island of the 70s is long gone.
There was no twerking in the 70s.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The girlies are outside. We're on TikTok. We want to drink our champagne and we want to listen to Beyonce. Like, let us live, it's not going to happen. And so what we can do though is to get behind and rally behind local businesses that have the ability to turn it into a place that we do want to see and that we do enjoy and that does bring value to who we are as a city. And I really feel that Wild does that. And I feel that we're a great representation of our community. Like I am from this area and I feel that every day I wake up and I want to make it a better place. I want to make my customer experience incredible. And so that's good for everybody. The rising tide raises the whole fleet, like let's all encourage each other to create the best experience for those that come to visit us and to represent our area well. And so obviously we know that supporting small business, that's how you get there, giving voice to people in your community that represent you in a way that, where you feel represented. It's so important. And so, I'm so glad that we got another year and I hope that we get another 5, another 10, but I can't say that. I don't know.
There was a bill involved, right? With Matt Gaetz was trying to push it. That doesn't do anything for long term. It's just like for now.
Well, I don't know. And so I probably need to be, I think it means that they can't sell it off in that regards. So hopefully that's for good. But the fines and the fees and who we pay and who we don't and who's allowed and who's not, it's always changing. And so that's quite stressful because you just don't know. And it's a lot. We give a good old chunk to the permitting and the fine system out there.
You do?
Yeah.
They've been fining you?
Oh yeah. We pay a lot of money.
Wow.
They have to have a permit to operate.
We pay monthly for an operating permit and then we pay at the end of the season as well again. So it's not all, flowers and roses out there. There is,
coconuts and pineapples.
Yeah, it's not all coconuts and pineapples, guys. It's hard, okay?
And you have to have insurance, I'm sure. And the fuel to fill up your little engines. And
Fuel, luckily, is
affordable.
A small amount, thank God. But, I think we could all use a little bit more confidence as business owners that we're going to be able to return to our community every year and reach them and serve them, And I think that's what's been hard about the whole situation. I actually got hit up by a girl in St. Pete. I'll shout her out. She's been watching Wild on TikTok, and she now sells coconuts and pineapples from I believe it's a little canoe in St. Pete, Florida. And she reached out to me. She didn't have to. And she just said how inspired she was by my business and the freedom that it created for my life. And that's what she's always wanted to have. And so now she sells fruit on the sandbars in St. Pete.
And if there's a way for you to franchise your brand so that other people who want to do it can.
I messaged her and I was like, well, really, I would love to send you one of my boats and get you to be Wild St. Pete. And she was like, she respectfully declined. She said, like, I want to be my own boss. But like, I really thank you. And like all support for her. And maybe one day. I think the type of person I am is like, if I'm going to do it, I just want it to be remarkable. Yeah. And so I won't do it until I know that.
That makes sense. You wait for
the right opportunity.
Yeah. That's admirable.
Thank you.
A lot of people don't do that. They jump in and they're like, why isn't this working?
Well, I think that's the thing too. Like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And in business, that's a good question to ask yourself. I think like low hanging fruit is always good, but like, think about that before you start grabbing, because you might just grab a little bit too much, you know?
We just heard a quote. The guy said, a lot of people come to him and say, I want to do what you do. He said, okay, are you willing to do what I did to get here?
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't. They just see this pretty image as to what you've created, but they don't know what it took to get there.
Yeah.
Sure, you can try, but it takes a very special person to have to go dredging through throwing coconuts and
it's not for everybody.
Yeah, of
course,
know.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, is like, if it was easy and if you weren't going to fail, like everybody would be doing it.
Absolutely.
But nobody was selling coconuts and pineapples. You know what? Because it was a nightmare to get it going. Like it really was.
That's right.
I froze my first batch of coconuts completely. Like the first batch that I ever bought, and we used to brand them. I used to buy them from a farm in Miami that would brand them, and that was actually quite strategic and smart at the start, because every coconut I sold had my logo on it. So I bought this first load of branded coconuts and I put it in these deep freezers. And I thought, these freezers are so full, I'm going to turn it on one all the way down and there's no way they're going to freeze. And I woke up the next day. They were just like $1,000 order of coconuts, just all frozen. And then, as you know, fruit, when you freeze it and then thaw it, it gets soggy. So I was like, oh, this will be fine. And then I brought it out and they were all soggy. And I just cried. I just sat there and cried, and I was
to thaw them out with your tears.
Literally, it was like bent over in the freezer box, like trying to pick them up and just like crying. And I was seeing a guy at the time, and he was just like, "Oh God, like I don't know what to do here. Yeah, like this is so awkward." And at that time, nobody knew if this was gonna work. So you were like, he was probably just like, "You're crying over this," like, and you know what? You just pivot, you just figure it out. But that's right. It's like, you got to be prepared that it's going to be difficult, you know, and when you're paving a way, you're breaking trail. Like that's tough work. You know,
not always coconuts and pineapples.
It's not always coconuts and pineapples.
A smooth sea never made a skilled coconut girl.
Yeah. Wait. This is good. We're going to write these down.
We have the name for your next podcast. Yes. It's not always pineapples and coconuts.
Well, the girls that asked me the other day, they were like, and I love them. I just love them. They're just turning up to a bunch of 21-year-olds at like that are in their prime. You know, like they've been out all night and they've been having the best time, and then they're with all their friends. Like turning up to these girls at work is so fun. And I got to work the other day and they were like, "Can we start a podcast?"
We thought about turning that corner, and because this is beautiful. I love what, you know, it's more masculine. I want a feminine space too. Yes. And then we just let people come in and we could do it on that.
We should bring the girls in.
Yeah, let's do it. You can paint, you can do whatever you want on that
wall.
That
would be so fun.
When you say the 21-year-old prime, I'm like, this part of you just think, how are they bouncing back if they've been out all night? That energy.
I wish. And I know what it is.
Coconuts.
It's coconut water.
Yes.
They help with hangovers.
It is. They do actually. Like that is, I've had many a day on the coconut boat where I needed a couple coconuts to survive. But
just dying in the sun.
They're just in their prime, babes. They're No, I think I envy it because I understand it, because I used to be that girl. You know, I was you, and now I'm literally I'm partnered up, and I'm the old one now. But it's so fun. I have one girl that she says last year her best day ever was when she was hungover. Yeah. So now she's under like this predisposition of like, when I'm hungover, good things happen.
Oh, no. It's not always going to work out that way.
She's testing the envelope lately. You're pushing the envelope, testing the water. So we'll see how she ends up this summer.
Do your girls get tips on the?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what they get, that 100%?
They are commissioned out in their pay. So we kind of have like a day pay rate, and they make some money.
Oh, I'm sure.
They make some money.
And I think maybe I'll go work for it.
I know.
I gotta get a 6-pack.
And that's another thing we need to like. I get messages, and that's what TikTok has really shaped. I get messages all the time, every day. Some people are like rude. Some people are like I need to be a coconut girl. And if I don't respond, they're like, why haven't you answered?
You almost need to make a post.
Like, I know.
I love you all.
I've thought about it, and I don't want to dash anybody's dreams. And that's kind of was the maker of the hat, right? Was like, we all went to Bali, and I looked at them, and like, it's kind of become notorious. Can you imagine the first time I went back to Bali and told my Balinese family that I have a coconut business from these little boats and I sell coconuts for $10? Like their minds exploded. They were just like, oh my God, this is so exciting. So now it's kind of become notorious. And then the girls came last year, and obviously you're moving around this island with like 10 beautiful, young, beachy, gorgeous girls who garnered a lot of attention. And I just thought, we're the coconut girls. Who doesn't want to be a coconut girl? And so that's where the hats came from.
I'm a coconut girl.
And so now I thought, like, at least if you can't get on the roster physically, you can buy the hat you can wear the hat, and we love you. And I wish I could hire everybody. And maybe when we expand, I'll have more options. But
I have an idea for you.
Yeah.
Off air.
We're going to, really? Should I do it off air?
I don't know. Is it a secret for business that someone's going to steal?
I don't know. Maybe. It's not like someone hasn't done this before, but it's a good idea for her.
Okay.
You could go on the hunt for the next coconut girl.
We've thought about this.
And
like a reality show.
We're going to make a reality show, and we'll film it for
Who will
you.
be
I want to do it like
coconut girl.
And we'll help you make it.
I want, please, because I want, okay, listen, I want to do this what's the cheerleader movie?
Bring It On.
Bring It On.
Yeah.
Like the where they do the tryouts.
Yeah.
Scene.
You're gonna push them through things.
Yeah,
you're gonna bring
and they're
them
like,
through.
and they have like
to
a
surf.
combo.
They have to learn to surf at your new surfing company.
Yeah.
We could do this like beautiful branded
Cutthroat.
thing. Yeah,
And like
We'll
a
be
chopping
cutthroat.
competition.
Be like worst weather in the bay. We're gonna put you in your canoe, and the engine's out.
How
Now
many
you have to
times
row.
can you like
Yeah.
work the shoulder?
You're a surfer girl your whole life. Vibe.
Yeah.
Outer Banks, cheesy or you love it?
Okay, I'm really bad because I fall asleep. And I get it from my mom. The TV goes on, I'm out.
I turn it on to fall asleep.
Yeah, exactly. And my partner's the same way. So I think we lost interest through the second season. I love it. It's kind of my childhood. I grew up on Holiday Isle, and we were running boats. We were using boats to get out before we had our licenses. Mm-hmm. So it was very much like growing up in Destin to me. Mm-hmm. So I liked it. Do you like it? Are you
It's entertaining.
What is it?
It's definitely cheesy at times, but it's good.
What is the Outer Banks?
Outer Banks.
Oh, the Outer
John
Banks.
B.
Oh, it's
John B.
so cheesy, but it's very addicting.
Yeah.
I like it.
Frankie's live on the cast. Our
We got
producer.
Frankie.
She's got some questions for Michaela today. What do you got?
Okay, so first question. Whatever happened to your cafe?
So my cafe, thank you. And I love this, Frankie. I'm so glad you wrote down questions for me. My cafe was just a seasonal pop-up. So we just had the lease for that one season. So we just closed after the end of, it would have been 2022.
Okay, and then do you still surf?
Yes, I do. Right now I'm to the point where I'm so busy that I kind of hope that the waves won't be good because I don't really have the time, and I mentally just don't have the mental capacity to put work away. Like I need to get better at that. But yeah, I surf as much as I can, and I spend my whole winter surfing, and I'm very selfish about that, honestly.
Where do you get your good waves?
So I do surf here, but I surf a lot in Indonesia. Oh. But you can surf here. A lot of people think that we don't have good waves. We do get good waves. And I am really excited about the possibility next year to be opening a surf school, especially for girls like you. So I think people will realize that we have a little bit more waves here than we think.
That's good. Because Frankie comes from Orange County originally in Cali.
Cool.
So she's right up the road from the Wedge and all that. So.
And you live out here, Frankie?
Yep, they're in Freeport now.
That's cool. Yeah, I know. I obviously, like I said before, spent a lot of time out in Orange County area. I actually met my partner in Mammoth. So during that first winter of COVID, so 2020, 2021, I couldn't go to Indo because the borders were shut, and I spent a season snowboarding, and that's how I met my partner. So, and he's now a charter captain in Destin.
That. Okay, I was going to ask because he wears that shirt. I saw one of your posts. I was like, I wonder if he has this. So we'll have to talk about that off camera too.
Yeah. He's amazing, and so we love California. We're very fond of that area. So
what's your next question?
What else you got over there?
My next question is, do you just sell coconuts and pineapples?
We sell coconuts, pineapples, and watermelon.
Oh.
Which the watermelon was new to last year. We'd done it before when we've like run out of coconuts. And actually Angelina, who works for me, she realized last year that we could cut the watermelon just like the pineapple with a pineapple corer. So we were cutting them in half and like cubing them, and you could get 2 halves of a personal watermelon. And now she will spiral the whole inside out, just like as if it was a pineapple, and put it all back in. So you have the watermelon and it's all cut up for you. You put a straw in it. You can eat the fruit out of it, or you can pour your own beverage in it. They're awesome. So now we have all 3. And then the 2 peanut boats, and we have amazing merch coming this year. Ooh. So really cute t-shirts. I've always been intimidated by merch because just on the boats, and especially the coconut boats, we're so busy. But yeah, we're doing merch this year, and it's really, really cool stuff. So if you're the type of person that likes to buy the t-shirt, please hit us up and have a look at it when it comes out.
Great.
What do you sell more, coconuts, pineapples, or watermelon?
Pineapples for sure. Yeah. I think more people have seen a pineapple, so it's the first thing that they, but I have gotten people that say it's the first fresh pineapple they've ever eaten in their lives.
Wow. But they have the fresh big mangoes though sometimes.
Yeah, the big, they recognize the mangoes, the pineapple they'd never seen before. A lot of people, you forget, like, people of all different walks of life, they don't have access to these things a lot of the time. So that's cool too. And I think that goes back to like the experience of the coconut. I always tell people, like, the whole origin story, it's always been more than just a coconut. It's about, because people always go, oh, well, my first coconut, I was on my honeymoon, or I went on a cruise to the Bahamas with my family and I had a coconut. Or it always reminds you about this nostalgic special time. Like the other day, there was a vendor or a lady that works in the Boardwalk Bodega. She sells drinks, and we might have a drink at the end of our day and go see her. And so she told me the other day, I'm from Trinidad, and every time I came home, my mom would cut me a coconut. And she was like, and your coconut boy started bringing me coconuts last year, and he had no idea. And my mom just passed, and it always reminds me of her. Just like having that mindset behind it and never forgetting that was the whole purpose, I think has really steered us the right way. Because we've always understood that was what it was about. And I'm always really quick to tell the girls, like, you're not just a cute coconut girl. You're not you are that, but you're not just that. You're here to create this memory where people are going to go, I met this girl, Charlotte, on this coconut boat in Destin, and she cut all my kids' fruit, and here's the photo, and people remember that forever.
You take photos for them, or do you get their phone?
Yeah, we take photos. We like to create. I actually started doing Polaroids at some point for families and giving away Polaroids to family. Like, this was at the start, when I had more time, and but we always try to like stop and take photos. I think it's a big part of what we do, and people want those memories, and it's so beautiful. Like, kids climb up on the boat and they get in the net, and we've done stuff like we've done Make-A-Wish stuff in the past, and any opportunity to just create those memories for people is really, really special.
Yeah, I could see it definitely as that vibe, like you're saying, where someone's like, I can't wait to go back to Destin, and we got to get the coconuts again.
Yeah, people are mad if they come out and we're not there.
It's like Vegas. You're like, we check in, we got to go get a Fat Tuesday and walk. Yeah. It's like the same vibe. Like, when we get to Crab Island, we got to get this.
And it never wears on me. Like, it's an incredible honor to be able to create that for people, like, and maybe that's my biggest thing too, is like, or like, I feel like I have a big ego to say that, but I feel like I've always understood that that's what it was about. Like, just the honor to create this memory for people. And I think people get that, and they feel that when they meet us. And luckily I have employees that really convey that too. So
it's worked clearly, because we saw them out, the boats out there. And then Steph will tell you, we've lived in multiple cities, and every time we move, we're always like, how do we reach out to the small businesses? And then right away we're like, there's a small business. Look at them cruising by selling stuff. So
I'm
Yeah,
so
you guys
glad.
stood
it
out.
brought you here, you know?
He's been following you since we went out to Crab Island the first time. And he said, there's something here. There's something here. We need to
That's
get her
so
on the
cool.
podcast. And then it came full circle and we'd go out and see you guys. I was like, wow, it's just fun. And your girls ride around and they're just these like baddies.
They're
and these
so-
tans and 6-packs just with fruit. I'm like, God, this is just,
I
it
love
is a
them.
full experience.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's just an honor all around. Like to create for a community. Like I said, you know, my growing up here, you resent it a little bit, or you resent where you grow up. Sometimes you want to outgrow your small world in some way. And I was super worried about how I was going to connect coming back, and having this project to throw myself into and to also create and share my experiences abroad and my experience as a local to this area with people was so cool. Like my first day, I remember my first day that I came out selling coconuts. That was the biggest thing, was all of a sudden I felt so connected to my family. To be on the boat, like coming out of the Destin Harbor on my boat by myself with fruit, something I never would have ever thought, because for a long time I would have been like, F that, I don't want to do that, I don't want to go back to Destin, whatever. I just remember feeling like so deeply connected with my family, knowing that they came by their living in the same way, and here I am getting the pleasure and the honor to serve my community in that same capacity. So cool.
That's cool.
I think it's my favorite to see how your story reveals itself. We like to resist it so often, but had you not done this and that and this and that and all those things along the way, which brought you to where you are right now, it's such a profound experience. But when we're in it, it's really hard to see it.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, like, pull on those moments in your story and let them define you. Don't resist it.
Yeah, the stretch. And I think it's beautiful. And it's really, I think that's the trouble too with the social media age that we live in, is like we see people growing their business. We see this boxed up version and this, you know, polished and endpoint that they got it to, or this polished product, but we don't know about the struggle. And so like today, I told you, I had a stressful morning. I was crying today, you know, like, and that doesn't mean I was defeated, but like we might not always see that. We might look and go, oh, these people that I admire, they have it all together. They started this business. Look, it's successful. They might be crying right now in bed, trying to figure out their next move. And that's another thing too, is I've gotten to the point now after 6 years where at some point you just got to stop doubting yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
That imposter syndrome.
You know, like at some point you're like, like in this year, I really decided where I was like, this is the year that I, like, obviously you want to know that things could go wrong, and you want to know that you would have a plan for that. Right. But at the same time, I just thought this is the first year where I'm going to go, no, I'm steering this ship, and I have the ability, and I've sharpened my tools. And if I don't know something, I'm going to figure it out. And I know I can do this. You know, I think it's important to get to that point.
Shifting the focus, which is the name of the podcast. How can you shift in those moments of doubt? How do you shift in the moments of failure? How do you shift in the moments of success? How do you take what you're learning and use it, as opposed to let it be your struggle that holds you back?
Yeah.
Solve problems.
Have you had, I know you've shared a lot of shifting moments already. Do you have anything else you want to add around that?
I think about a lot of the time surfing big waves. Like, you don't have any time to panic at that point. You have to tell yourself, no matter what happens, I can swim myself out of here. And so I think that's kind of what I picture when I'm really struggling, is like, I literally picture myself going right for that duck dive right before that big wave is about to crash. Well, babes, you better put those nerves away. You better take a deep breath and stay calm for this ride. Like, really, because if you start freaking out, then you're in trouble. And so I kind of like to put it, I think that visual helps me, like just going, hey, this is a big wave. I'm going to acknowledge this is very stressful, but I have this skill set. I have the strength. I have the swimming ability. I have the confidence. I got the air in my lungs. I'm going to make it out of here. And then we'll figure it out after that, you know.
I'll keep my head above water.
Yeah. And I think that's helped me to kind of maintain in times where I feel unsure.
It's great advice.
What I love about your business, and I don't even know if you're doing it on purpose, but there's so many like inside puns along the way.
It's so good.
We were talking about low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steer my own ship. Like everything that you said today, I'm like,
it's perfect.
There's like
I said yesterday during that storm, I was like, hang on to your nuts.
Yeah.
And we just realized that now, like I sell many types of nuts, coconuts, peanuts, you know, like, so it works. Yeah, it's great. There's lots of analogies in there.
Thank you for not allowing somebody else to get in your way and to change you and to change your identity. Thank you for being strong enough and confident enough to know your path. Because of what you've done and what you continue to do, you've brought so many great things to this area, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I know anything you touch is just going to blossom and evolve into even more greatness. And thank you for supporting women in business and the youth. And you're just a powerhouse. And if anybody wants to follow you, where are you?
So we're at Wild Destin. That's Instagram and TikTok. If you want to email me, I'm wilddestin@gmail right now. And that's the easiest place to kind of get in touch. Okay. And wilddestin.co.
Okay. We'll list all that below as well. Anything else you want to add?
And if you're looking for a job with her, she'll let you know. But
we need
you should buy. But you should buy their merch.
Yes, please. And if I can just say, like, thank you for all the kind words. And I just want to thank our community too, like, for giving me the support to keep me going. You know, like like I said, there's still those captains that I see that have been there from the beginning, and there obviously will always be naysayers, but like those people that supported you from the beginning, they're the voice that's 10 times louder. And there are so many of those when I think about our story. And so I just want to thank everyone in our community that's held us up. And I realize what an honor it is to hopefully be able to inspire. And I'm very grateful. So
if there's anything we can do to further support you, let us know.
Yeah.
We love helping great people, and you're a great person.
Thank you.
And we'll be out there. So
yes. I hope we have an amazing year, and I hope everybody comes and engages with the Coconut Girls and takes pictures and meets the girls and have a chat with them, because they're awesome and they love being at work. So
So one final one. What's your last best question you want to use? Because Frankie's got more for you.
Come on, Frankie.
Frankie, hit her with your favorite one of your last ones. Okay. Microphone.
Gotta turn it on. I think you're muted.
So how many customers on average do you have on a summer day?
That's such a good question. Wow, I have to think about that. Let me think. So probably, I would say it would have to be around 1,000 people.
1,000 people?
1,000 purchases, probably.
1,000 purchases. Yeah, but when you think about a family, like it might be one purchase, but you might be selling 10 pineapples at that boat, and you do that a couple times with 3 boats. Yeah, you're coming into contact to a lot of people, like a July 4th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's
a lot.
How much money do you make with that?
We'll let you do the math.
We'll let you do the math, but we'll do, like, if you can imagine when you walk into work, pineapples stacked to the ceiling.
We'll let you do the math off air.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we'll let you do the math of being fined and charged and paying taxes and paying employees. And then you realize that she paid
insurance and your boat,
and then you realize she gets paid in nuts at that point.
Yeah. It's a couple of good peanuts, and it's helping me get by.
That's right.
You make peanuts.
I make a few peanuts. But it's a lot of fruit. And maybe one day you can come out and check it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, huh?
Yeah.
Snap some
It'd be a fruitful experience for you.
It never ends.
It never ends. All right.
Thank you again for coming.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Us too. We'll see you soon. Peace out, guys.
See you on the water.